Hello and welcome everyone. Hi Lisa, how are you doing
Hi,
today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Looking forward to this webinar. A little nervous, I must admit. Okay, so let's jump into it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the Family Law Now live virtual event series. Thank you for joining us for Mastering the Case Center, Strategies for Streamlined Litigation. Please note for any professionals in the audience, this session has been accredited for 1 hour of professionalism content by the Law Society of Ontario. Today, the panel will discuss account creation, permissions, naming conventions expected by the courts, how to build an intuitive file for the judge, redactions, tools, in-hearing use and etiquette, e-filing, ethics, and finally, pro-level tips from our clerks. As always, we encourage you to participate in the polls and use the Q&A feature throughout the event. All resources mentioned today will be included in the show notes, which you'll receive via email later this week. And I will now introduce our panelists. And while I'm doing that, I'm just going to launch our first poll. So I will now introduce the panelists. Today, we are joined with Lisa Clark. Lisa is a senior law clerk with over 16 years of experience in family law and joined Russell Alexander in June of 2025. Lisa graduated from the law clerk program at Fleming College in 2009 and has developed a well-rounded understanding of the complexities of family breakdown. She is a member in good standing with the Institute of Law Clerks of Ontario and recently received her designation as an ILCO certified expert in family law. Raised in Kawartha Lakes and now settled in Peterborough, Lisa enjoys photography, reading, online gaming, and spending time with her cats. Thanks for being here today, Lisa. We're also joined by Michelle Snook. Michelle has worked as a law clerk exclusively in family law since 2013. She joined Russell Alexander in September of 2017. Michelle graduated with honors from the Legal Office Administration program at Mohawk College in 2013. As a law clerk, she works closely with clients to draft various correspondence and court documents. Michelle is committed to providing professional and compassionate assistance to clients, ensuring their needs are met with precision and care throughout their legal process. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us today. And lastly, Dana Patton joined Russell Alexander in September 2024. She began her legal career in 2019 as a paralegal in provincial offenses before discovering her passion for family law in 2021 at a Kitchener-Waterloo firm. As a law clerk, Dana provides the firm's lawyers with all aspects of client files, including correspondence, financial statements, court pleadings, and divorce matters. She is dedicated to providing clients with compassionate, attentive service. Dana holds a degree in sociocultural anthropology and women's studies from Western University and completed the paralegal program at Fanshawe College, becoming licensed in 2018. Outside of work, she enjoys time with her friends, family, and dogs, as well as reading, cooking, and home renovation projects. Thank you to Dana as well for joining us today. And I will now hand things over to Michelle Snook to get started with the presentation.
Yeah, for sure. Welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to go over this topic today. It's something that I think we as clerks use every single day. It's something we're pretty familiar with. It's been around for a few years, and so yeah, we've it's another secondary tool that we use in our everyday practice. So I'm going to touch first on what exactly is Case Center. Why has it become such a big part of the family law practice in Ontario? Case Center is the court's online platform for uploading, organizing, and reviewing case documents in matters under the Family Law Act and the Children's Law Reform Act. It's where counsel, clerks, Self-represented parties and judges all meet virtually before and during a hearing. Case Center gives everyone access to the same clean index set of materials, which is critical in today's hybrid and virtual hearings. It's more than just convenience. Judges now depend on Case Center to manage fairness. When materials are disorganized or missing, it slows the process and can actually affect the outcome of a case. So discipline in how we use the platform directly impacts procedural efficiency. Think of it this way. If you're appearing on a motion or a conference in Ontario Family Court, Case Center is not optional, it's expected. Using it well sends you a message. Your materials are accessible, your case is ready, and most importantly, you respect the court's time. However, before we can begin uploading or sharing materials, we need to understand how we actually get into the system and what level of access we as legal professionals are supposed to have. I'm going to pass it over to Dana, who's going to discuss how accounts are created, how access is granted, and how to make sure everyone, including your client, is connected properly from the start.
Thank you, Michelle. Welcome, everybody. So with account creation, a number of the issues that we actually see is with account setup, permission errors. So it's important to understand who has access, what level their access is. This is also key in keeping your file secure, efficient, and compliant. So there's two main ways to access Case Center. So the first is invitation-based. This is when you receive an invitation from the court or from counsel. So if you're inviting a client or OCL, you can invite them through Case Center and they will receive the invitation via email. The second way is they can register. You can register directly through the website. So when you get the invitation, it will just take you directly to your account as you've created it in advance. It's important to make sure you're using the email that's connected with the courts so that information isn't being missed and you're not being added to the wrong program. So in setting up, you also need to make sure that your name or firm is clearly labeled on your account, as the judge and clerks need to know at a glance who's responsible for uploading that material. So Case Center is role-based for access, which determines who can do what within Case Center. So we have the administrative level, which is typically your court staff and lawyers. So this level can grant permissions or access to Case Center, to bundles, to people who are not already added. They can also add or upload documents, move documents. They have a fair bit of access. The next level is going to be people who are just contributing. So this is going to be your law clerks, maybe junior counsel or support staff who are handling preparation for that file. And then you have your view only. So this is going to be your clients or perhaps an expert that you've added to the Case Center who they just need to review the material. They don't need to be able to upload any documents. And it's important to make sure that that access level is being strictly adhered to, as we don't want to experience any accidental deletions or uploads of documents that have sensitive material in them. So how would we add a client or an expert or even OCL? Because occasionally the court does miss adding someone to a bundle. So here you're going to navigate to your home page in Case Lines. You'll navigate to the case that you want to add someone to. Along the top, you'll see a tab called People. When you go to that tab, you're going to see everybody who already has access. And then along the side, you'll also see what bundles they have access to. Because not all the court staff are also going to have access to each bundle because they may not all be in charge of that. So once you're in there, you're going to click on Invite New Participant. This will direct you to a new page where you can enter the person's email address, which is how they're going to receive that invitation, which bundle you want them to have access to. There'll be a list of the bundles and a box you can click off beside the ones that you want. And then there's going to be access permission. So you need to confirm the permission level this person is going to have. Do you want them to have access to just view the documents, or do you want them to be able to upload, download, or edit those documents in any way. There's also an option that the person being added can get notifications for any time something changes in Case Center. So it is really important to make sure that your account creation has the email that the court's going to have. If your email ever changes, that's being updated. And that if you're adding someone, you're being careful about their permission levels and what they can view in each bundle. And so next, I'm going to hand it over to Michelle, who's going to tell us about uploading rules and naming conventions that are expected by the court.
Yeah, so I'm just going to touch first. I see we have the results from a couple polls that we've been running. So yeah, it looks like we got a good chunk that are pretty familiar with Case Center, so that's great. And then we have a decent amount that aren't familiar, and that's why you're here today, I guess. So yeah, we'll make sure that we are trying to cover all the bases here so that you can walk away feeling more in the somewhat or maybe the very familiar categories there. All right, so I'm going to now talk about the uploading and naming disciplines and principles for Case Center. So yeah, uploading and naming your documents is where most files can either shine or they can collapse. Under the Index tab, Case Center automatically divides every file into court-populated bundles. All these words are I find they're just funny working with the court and determining the difference between an index and a bundle and just access to Case Center. I find it's really important to be specific in what you're asking for permission to. For instance, if you're uploading materials and you have a case conference coming up, if you go into Case Center and your case conference bundle is not yet opened, often we'll need to reach out to the court staff to ask them to open that bundle. If you say index, sometimes they'll say that that's already created or that counsel has already been permitted access. So just make sure that you're being really clear in the terminology that you're using with Case Center. As a lot of it can seem interchangeable, but because it's so specific, just make sure you're using those proper terms. Most commonly at the start of a case, the pleadings and endorsement bundles are the ones that are created first. And as the matter progresses, as it touched on, as case conferences or motions are scheduled, then those bundles will be opened. Most frequently, they'll have a date assigned to the conference bundle. So it'll say case conference, November 12th, 2025. And so you know you're uploading your materials to that specific conference bundle. Sometimes there's multiple conferences, and so that's why they put those dates there. Some courts are beginning to upload the parties' material to the applicable bundles themselves once they've been filed correctly. However, it's important that before any court appearance, you check that your materials have in fact been uploaded. And if they're not there, it's your job to ensure that they are. You must not assume that a judge has reviewed your pleadings if you have not uploaded them to the appropriate bundle in Case Center. This comes into play a lot when it comes to your application and your financial statement, your parenting affidavits, etc. We assume because they're filed in the continuing record that the judge has access and has reviewed them prior to a conference. But it's important to make sure that those materials are in the pleadings bundle within Case Center to make sure that all your materials within your continuing record and the materials for your case conference are all there and presentable for the judge. Only the court has the ability to create and remove bundles in Case Center. You can't rename or move these sections. They're created by the court to keep the record standardized across every case. Your job is to upload to the correct bundle. Putting documents in the wrong bundle may not seem like a big deal, but it can completely throw off the flow when the judge opens the file. Keeping each document in its proper bundle tells the court instantly that you understand the process and respect and the record structure. A few key tips to effective and proper uploading to Case Center would be to upload early into the correct bundle, ideally a full business day before your hearing, more if possible. Last-minute uploads aren't just stressful, they can raise fairness concerns that may lead to adjournments, especially if the other side hasn't had a chance to review the material. Ensure proper file size and format. It's important to consider that judges read the documents on screen. Stick to clean, legible PDFs. Bookmarks are helpful, but not a requirement. What matters most is that each document opens quickly and clearly. And lastly, name intelligently. A clear, consistent system is the fastest way to impress the bench. It's important to use the court's naming guidelines when naming your documents before uploading them to Case Center. Judges shouldn't need to guess which document is which. I would just recommend using the naming guidelines that are set out in practice directions and making sure that essentially the document that you submitted for e-filing is the exact same document you're uploading to Case Center because it's all named the same. Once your materials are in Case Center, organized by index and properly named, you've got the bones of a good file. The next step, and where your professionalism really shows, is in how you structure that file for the judge hearing your matter. Next, Dana is going to walk through what makes the Case Center file intuitive from the bench's perspective.
Yeah, so some of the points I'm going to talk about, Michelle has touched on, but always good to go over it a second time. When building your file in Case Center, as Michelle has mentioned, those pleadings folders are essentially your continuing record. So before Case Center, we would have binders of continuing records. So this is very similar. And making it as clear and efficient as possible is going to be the judge's first impression of your file and can shape how efficiently your evidence and arguments are received. So Case Center is organized, as mentioned, into bundles for each hearing or event. And there are more general bundles such as the pleadings and the endorsement and orders bundles. So these bundles are going to be visible to anyone who has access to them. So if the client's on them, if an OCL is on them, if an expert's on them, they're going to be able to read any documents you upload to that bundle. So it's important to make sure who has access to that bundle and what are the documents that you're uploading. So so if you, as mentioned, if you don't see a specific bundle, reach out to the court because you need to make sure that your documents are being uploaded to the appropriate bundle. If you're uploading to the wrong file or just document dumping into like the pleadings folder, it's going to create confusion. It's going to create embarrassment. It's going to create a lot of frustration for everybody who has to access that information. So another tip, following naming conventions. Absolutely. If you can't figure out what the document is within a few clicks, then the judge can't either. And that's going to also create confusion and frustration in finding what that material is you need for that hearing, especially if there's updated documents like updated financial statements. They need to know what the latest version is of that. There's also tools inside of Case Center, such as bookmarks, hyperlinks, that can direct you to specific pages, exhibits, or paragraphs. So definitely take the time to review Case Center before your hearing. Can you find that document in a few clicks? Can you understand what that document is? Are the exhibits correctly linked? View it as if you were the judge seeing it for the first time. Because I know we can become a bit blind to seeing these documents over and over again. We know what they are, but somebody seeing this for the first time isn't going to know that. So taking that extra 5 minutes is going to save you a lot of hardship. And if you're working on a limited scope and your client's acting as a self-rep, the court will upload documents to Case Center on the client's behalf. The self-rep is not required and not expected to be uploading those documents to Case Center. So that's a great benefit to those who want to work on a limited scope. So next I'm going to be discussing redactions and confidentiality within Case Center. So Case Center is a secure platform, but the responsibility for ensuring that confidential or private information is properly redacted and protected, that lies with us. Case Center does not automatically redact documents, and currently there is no tool within Case Center to redact any private information. So you can use programs such as Adobe Pro or similar programs to redact. It's important not to be using just black boxes or highlighting, because that information can still be copy and pasted, searched, or recovered. So it is not secure if you're just doing that. So some of the information we're going to need to redact is going to be social insurance numbers, bank account numbers, credit card numbers, third-party information, such as maybe a new employer, a new partner, medical documents, counseling records, anything that can be seen as not relevant to the case. Protection and confidentiality is also crucial for children's identification, such as children's names, although they may appear in affidavits or certain court documents. If it's not relevant, or if there's a protection order, or if there's a risk of family violence, that information needs to be redacted and protected. So you can identify children using initials or using labels such as eldest child or youngest child, as well as the children's addresses or school information also should be redacted and protected if any of these factors mentioned would apply to your situation. Any documents that are sealed or you are seeking a seal order for them, those should not be uploaded to case lines. Those should be emailed to the trial coordinator and asked to be forwarded to the judge as you are seeking a seal order for them. So once you've redacted your documents and you have successfully uploaded them to case lines, make sure that those redactions are still showing. Make sure that nothing's disappeared and that none of that information is visible. Okay, and next I'm going to hand it over to Lisa, who is going to talk to you about tools inside Case Center.
Yes, absolutely. So there are a lot of tools and kind of key features that you can use in Case Center. So I'm going to start with an overview of what those tools are before going into more detail about the tools that you're going to be using the most, being like the notes, highlighting, and the hyperlinking, I know is a big one for people. So for case management, key tools are document organization, uploading, indexing, putting the page numbers on the files, including the documents, images, videos, audio, and also creating a searchable and organized digital case file. There are user-specific views, so you can share selected parts of a case file with specific users without duplicating files or compromising security. You could also, I believe there's also an AI-powered search that can be used as well to search through materials throughout the case, including handwritten documents and images. There are a lot of time-saving tools, including case file annotation. So that's where you're gonna be adding your notes and hyperlinks, pen annotations to documents with notes, which will persist even if new documents are added. Redaction, as has been touched on, evidence admission, so you can admit your documents, PDFs, images, videos, audio, all into the platform without leaving your browser. Document comparison, so you can compare materials side by side, including, again, documents, videos, or audio, so that you can help build a strong case narrative. There are presentation tools that can be used. This would be while you're using them in hearings, which I will touch on later as well. But you can give real-time direction, the hyperlinking, you can play videos, video playback, and virtual collaboration. So, which will enable all the parties to view all the evidence simultaneously, so you're all looking at the same thing. There's also secure document sharing, collaborative access, and then of course the permission-based sharing that's already been touched on. And then there are also other Thomson Reuters tools that can integrate with Case Center to help make your life a little easier, like Westlaw Advantage, Practical Law Clear, those types of things. So all of these integrated tools are just enhancing the functionality of Case Center and providing a comprehensive solution for the legal professionals. And now I'm going to go into a bit more detail on how to use the most commonly used tools that you want to use in Case Center. The first one being how to use the notes function. So once you've logged into your Case Center account and you have selected the document you want to review from the case file list, it'll open the document in what is called the Case Center viewer. So in the viewer mode, you're going to move your cursor to the area where you want to add the note. You can right click or use the toolbar and select add note. a comment box will appear in either the margin or on the page, and then you type your note in. So for example, you want to make a note to yourself, confirm disclosure of this exhibit, or cross-reference with another document that's in the bundle. And you can choose your different types of notes. So Case Center will let you choose between a private note, which is visible only to you. So this is ideal for personal reminders, strategy points, or research observations. And then there are also shared notes, which are visible to your case team and, if permitted, other parties. This is useful for collaboration, taking issues, or sharing observations before or during a hearing. And you can toggle the visibility or permissions when saving the note. To edit or delete a note, I think is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to click on it to highlight it and then either edit it or delete it. All changes are automatically saved. Using the notes to view all the notes, there's something called a notes panel. And then you can filter the notes by author, date, or tag, jump directly to the page or section where a note appears, and also export and print your notes if the permissions allow. In team settings, you can also share your notes in order to assign tasks or follow-up actions, identify key sections for cross-examination, and also preparing your submissions. So each note will show the author of the note, the timestamp, and so you can ensure the traceability of who did what. And when you're using the notes in hearings, it really helps you because it'll help you locate your highlights and kind of have your strategy on the documents notes right there with you. The next one, and I believe this was actually a pre-registration question too, is people want to know how to hyperlink. And this is super, super helpful. This is probably the tool that we use the most on Case Center. So there are only 3 different things that you can hyperlink to in Case Center. You can hyperlink to another document that's within the same case file, a specific page within another document, or an external URL, as long as website, as long as it's permitted by the court. So if you want to like do a hyperlink to a case on Canley or something like that would be allowed, but they generally do not want any personal locked websites. Like you probably won't be able to go to your Westlaw account directly because they wouldn't actually be able to access that. So now to do the actual hyperlinking, you're going to kind of the same way you're going to do the notes. You're going to go into choosing your document, and once you have that open in the document viewer, you'll find the annotation toolbar, which is usually the top right-hand side of your screen. And then you're going to hit add link or hyperlink, which may also show up as the chain symbol. And then you'll notice that your cursor will have changed, which is going to allow you to choose where on the document you want to put the hyperlink location. So once you've clicked where you want the link to go, it's going to be prompted. You're going to receive a prompt on the screen that's going to want you to pick what you're hyperlinking to, whether it be another document or page or external website. These are really good for hyperlinking to like exhibits and that sort of thing. So once you've added your hyperlink destination, you want to put just a very brief description of what you're hyperlinking to, because it will show that on the page, and you don't want to just inundate the page with all of these hyperlink comments. So try to keep them as succinct as possible. So like see Exhibit C, for example. And then always, once you've created the link, always go back and click on it to make sure it's actually working and it's actually directing you to where you want to be sent. And if for some reason it's not, then you can just right click on it and edit the properties or edit link. And the same way to delete it, you just right click, edit, or delete. And using the hyperlinks in hearing is super helpful because it's going to help you navigate quickly from one document to another during the hearing. And yeah, as a reminder, just avoid excessive linking that will clutter the file. Just only link key evidence, and use clear descriptive link labels so everyone know where the link is going. And then we're going to go on to using the highlighter feature in Case Center, which lets you visually emphasize your key text or section in documents, similar to using a physical highlighter on your paper binders, but added flexibility with color coding and linking to your notes and shared visibility as well. So the same thing, you're going to go into Case Center, open your document through the built-in viewer. You're going to find that toolbar with all the handy tools up at the top and select your highlighter icon. And now your cursor is going to act as a digital highlight. So you can highlight your text, or you can highlight areas. So like if it's an image or a chart or something that's not typed words. And then it'll also allow you to choose different multiple colors so you can organize your thoughts and your highlighting. And then it'll also let you add your notes to highlights. So it's possible to be super organized with all the tools that they have in having Case Center, because and again, you can edit and remove highlights. And you can use the highlights to guide your presentation during court as well. And then the last tool that I'm going to go into a little more detail on is just how to use the shared views in Case Center. So once you get into the case file or folder that you're into and you want to access the shared view tool, you're going to look for a shared views or share button, which is usually at the top right of the toolbar. And you're going to click create new shared view. And then you will choose Case Center will display all of the documents that are currently in the case, and then you will choose whichever specific documents, pages, or sections that you want included in the share view. And you can also include the highlights and notes and annotations that you had previously done in the shared view if you want. Then that's when you set your permission. So you decide who's going to be able to access it. If it's an individual, a group like your legal team, or external parties if permitted. And then you can set the access label to either view only or comment. And then you can also configure additional options like an expiry date, like the document will only be shared for so long, notifications, password protection as well. And then you'll save or create, and then that will generate a link or access notification to whoever you're sharing that with. So that actually just kind of goes right into my next topic, actually, which is using the in-hearing use of Case Center. But first, I kind of just want to go to the poll. I see that we got the answer for our poll in about how comfortable enough people are using to not be bringing their printed copies to a hearing. And let's see. So yeah, I'd say, yeah, 39% of you are still printing critical documents. Yeah. Oh, okay. So a bunch of people are fully digital. That's actually kind of really exciting to see. And yeah, there are still a few old school people printing everything. I have a hard time getting out of the paper as well. So, okay, so now going into the in-hearing use of Case Center. So the biggest kind of thing is the evidence presentation. So you're able to, present your case on your screen, and everyone is seeing the same thing and on the same page. So you're going to have your direct access to your case files. So you can pull up any document, image, video at any time. It's real-time navigation, so you can direct participants to a specific page without having to physically hand out copies of the document. And then you're using your hyperlink use to jump between documents quickly. Also multimedia playback, so you can play video and audio directly through Case Center. And then, of course, you have your highlighted evidence, your persistent notes, the notes that you want shared and people to be able to see. And now we're going to get to in-hearing etiquette using Case Center. And there is quite a bit that you should be following. So, of course, professional conduct. Make sure that you are comfortable navigating Case Center before the hearing to avoid any delays during proceedings, because nothing would be worse than getting on, being before the judge, and not actually knowing how to use Case Center or how to get to the documents that you're being asked to share or view or read. So also avoid switching between unrelated files or excessive scrolling, which can disrupt the flow. You want to make clear communication, so announce the document or evidence you're showing before presenting it. Make sure you're following the court protocols, as been touched on before, about making sure you're naming them correctly, uploading them correctly, because some courts will have rules about how electronic evidence is admitted. So you need to make sure everything is labeled and marked and disclosed. And then also make sure that you're only sharing things that are allowed, that should be shared. Make sure you're technically prepared. So make sure your device has a strong internet connection, your display settings are working, you've tested your audio, all of that. And also, it's really important to have a backup plan. So if, for example, you have your maybe you suddenly lose access to something and you need to have a backup copy available to you. Also, try to have respect for other participants in the case. Try to avoid blocking screens or projecting evidence in a way that will limit others' access. And also wait for cues. Only highlight or advance evidence when appropriate, like when the judge or witness is ready. So you really want to think of Case Center like a digital binder. It's going to make the proceedings faster and more organized, but it's still important to be deliberate, professional, and courteous when using it live. And then there's also handling freeze and technical issues, because that can happen when we're using something that's internet based, especially with winter coming up in storms. It is possible that those freezes or lags are going to happen, or interruptions in your connection. So always, like I said, preload documents, test your multimedia before the hearing, have a backup copy, even if that's a hard copy, as some of you already do. And then if a freeze occurs, just calmly explain the delay and switch to your backup materials so that you try to lessen the interruption in the proceedings. Also, another issue that can come up is dealing with mismatched versions of a document. So, for example, the case file versions may be different than the versions that the other parties have, and the page numbers, for example, may not line up. So you always need to make sure that everyone is working off the same version of the case file before the hearing, and clearly identify any discrepancies verbally if they can't be resolved, and avoid referencing highlights and notes that other people can't see. If there are any missing pages that occur, for example, maybe when a document was scanned in, it may not have been noticed that a page was missing or something like that. You just want to, it's why it's so important to review everything in advance to ensure that nothing's missing. All the pages are there, all the documents are there. Inform the court or opposing counsel immediately if you notice that there's something missing so it can be corrected. Don't ever try to bypass or ignore the missing evidence. Transparency is key here. And then just some general in-hearing etiquette for using Case Center. Be familiar with your materials. Know your notes, know your highlights, know your shared views, and know your hyperlinks before the hearing. Minimize your distractions, only highlight and show essential evidence, and avoid unnecessary navigation. Communicate clearly, announce the document and the relevant page before showing it. Stay calm during technical issues, because they will probably happen at some point during a hearing. Handle them professionally, don't without blaming the system. Respect others' views when highlighting or annotating sharing documents, ensuring that you're not misleading or obstructing anyone else's access. So you're also going to want to ensure that you're using consistent color coding across for quick reference. You can also combine your highlights, notes, and hyperlinks for a more structured and presentation. Always verify that the final version matches what you intended to present. So, and have your backup contingency plan. So in summary, your annotations and highlights are the tools that are going to make your evidence clear, organized, and persuasive. The etiquette revolves all around the preparation, transparency, and clear communication, especially when technical issues arise. So being proactive and having a backup plan will just ensure that things move smoothly and without interruption. So after all that, I am now going to hand it over to Michelle, who's going to talk to us about integrating e-filing and the duty of service using Case Center.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of making sure everything moves smoothly, a large part of that is going to be making sure that you're still following all the appropriate steps, that service is carried out effectively and within accordance with the rules, and that yeah, we follow, like I said, we follow all the rules. So what's the difference between service, e-filing, and uploading to Case Center? It's three separate steps, but it all kind of seems like it's the same. What do we need to make sure we do first? What comes last? And what's the process we need to do to make sure that we're keeping the court happy? So this topic often, like I said, it confuses a lot of people. Where does Case Center fit with e-filing, and where does it fit with service? So let's be clear, uploading your material to Case Center does not count as service, and it does not replace your e-filing obligations, meaning you need to serve your documents and you need to upload them to most commonly the JSO portal, or the new portal that's now open for Toronto Court, first, before your materials are uploaded to Case Center. They are 3 separate steps, but they are also very much connected. There's one for opposing parties, which is your service, one for the court record, which is your filing, and one for how everyone views the materials during the hearing, which is case center. First you serve, then you e-file, and again, then you upload to case center. Always double check the case center version is the same served version are identical. We touched on this a bit earlier. How I do it is just making sure that the document that I name in accordance with the practice directions is the same document that then I'm uploading to Case Center. I'll often put them in little subfolders and make sure that once it's submitted for e-filing, it gets put in that folder. And then when I get my filing confirmation, I go to that specific subfolder and upload those documents to Case Center. That's just how I do it to make sure that I'm uploading the exact same version to both the court and to Case Center. And if you do discover a mismatch, just fix it immediately. Transparency avoids procedural objections and keeps credibility high. So the rule is simple. We serve for fairness, we e-file for the record, and then we upload for access. When you follow that order, everyone knows they're looking at the right document at the right time. So really just brief on that, but it's kind of, like I said, pretty straightforward. We serve, we e-file, we upload. And now that we've discussed that, and what keeps our record clear and your hearing smooth, there's another side to digital practice that we can't ignore, which is the ethical and practice management risks. Lisa is now going to discuss what every clerk and lawyer should keep in mind to manage those risks and protect both the client and the record.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there are some things that can happen with digital mismanagement, late uploads, just undisclosed updates. So digital mismanagement is basically the failure to organize, secure, and maintain your digital evidence. This risk means misplacing critical documents, inadvertent disclosure of sensitive or privileged information, and a loss of audit trail for your notes and annotations, highlights, and shared views. So the best practices to mitigate that is to implement clear filing naming conventions and folder structures, as we've talked about. Use your access permissions and shared views carefully so to control who sees what, and regularly back up files and maintain version control. When it comes to undisclosed updates and late uploads, you really don't do it. Just don't do it because there's so many problems. Don't do it. So legal risk, non-compliance with disclosure obligations. So the courts are typically going to require parties to provide all relevant evidence within a set timeline. So late uploads can be seen as failing to meet these obligations. You could also get objections from opposing counsel, and opposing parties may object to using these late filed documents because they may claim that they can cause prejudice or unfair surprise. And judges may also refuse to admit late or undisclosed documents into evidence, which could potentially weaken your case. So you want everything to be on time and accurate and disclose everything. Some ethical risks you're going to run into is, lawyers have a duty to act honestly and fairly. So deliberately withholding or failing to disclose evidence can be considered misleading the court, which could result in complaints to the Law Society or disciplinary action. Just not worth it. So always be transparent, and notify other parties of new uploads. Because yeah, if you don't, that will violate the rule around the openness and fairness in litigation. So some practice management risks around confusion or misalignment. So if different parties are using different versions of a case file, references to documents or page numbers may not match, and that could cause errors in court. It could also cause workflow disruption. Late uploads are going to disrupt the hearing preparation, witness preparation, and any strategy planning for that court date. It could also cause risk to client outcomes. Any delay or exclusion of key evidence could materially affect the case result. So to mitigate these risks, always upload early, well in advance of deadlines or hearings. Notify the other parties whenever new documents are added. Generally, Case Center will send a notification to you once a new document's been added if you have those notification settings set up. You can also document your actions, just keep records of all the upload times and notifications so that you can demonstrate your compliance with those. Use version control. Make sure all parties are using the latest court-approved version of the case file. I know generally right now the rule is basically If you're only supposed to be uploading documents to Case Center that have been accepted for filing by the court. I know that can be a little tricky depending on the timing of when the court accepts and sends you back the filed versions. So that can be a little tricky to get around, but you generally are the same document that has been filed is the one that needs to be uploaded. And then of course have your backup plan of your PDF or printed copies if that's necessary. During hearings, there's not everyone is going to have the same references to the exhibits or page numbers or highlights, and can potentially compromise the integrity of the evidence. So, and then of course we talk about security and confidentiality. These are digital files that are susceptible to unauthorized or access if you're not careful and they're not properly secured, which can breach client confidentiality and any other breaches relating to handling sensitive or privileged information. So always try to use strong passwords, two-factor authentication, apply permissions, and shared view restrictions carefully. Practice management implications for workflow dependence. Over-reliance on Case Center without proper oversight can create some bottlenecks if the files aren't uploaded or synced in time if you're only relying on Case Center for the documents. And training, it is really important that everyone on your team knows how to use Case Center. It's not just the clerks who need to know how to use it. The lawyers, we really do need to know how to use it as well, because the courts are relying on that more and more. So just to summarize again, because while Case Center does streamline the digital evidence management, you have to consider these ethical and practice management risks that can arise from poor organization, timing issues, undisclosed updates, and security lapses. So lawyers and staff must make sure that they are maintaining version control, timely uploads, document and disclose all annotations and changes, protect your client confidentiality with secure permissions, train, make sure your staff is following the protocols consistently. I think that takes us nearly to the end. And I do see we have a bunch of questions as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa and Michelle and Dana, for sharing all your knowledge so far. We did have a couple audience questions come in. First, I just want to address, we did have a lot of questions coming in about screen sharing and having visuals on screen as a reference for Case Center. We did not screen share during this presentation, but there will be resources available. So if you've registered for the session, you will get an email with resources. And if you have not registered and you're watching on Zoom right now, we will update the description. So just check back in a couple of days and we'll make sure to have resources for everyone. Now for some more audience questions. How do you give clients access to Case Center? Dana, are you able to take this one?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're looking to add a client to Case Center, you're going to want to go to that particular case home, go to people, and then you'll see a button at the top that says Invite New Participant. When you click on that, it's going to take you to a new page where you can input the client's email address. You can click off the bundle that you want them to have access to and what level of permissions you want them to have. So do you want them to be able to just view the documents or download them? Do you want them to be able to upload or edit them in any way? Typically for clients, you just want them to be able to view the documents. And then once you've clicked submit, the client will get an email and they can create an account or log in and see that information.
Thank you so much. Another question we had come in is, I've had a few files where I'm not permitted to invite others, despite following the steps you just went through. Is this because when I was initially added to the matter, the permission was set to view only? Lisa, are you able to tackle that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So short answer is yes, that would be what happened. So when you're inviting a user to Case Center and you have all of the permissions, and you will go through and see what you can specifically allow them to do and invite users is one of those permissions. So if you're not allowed to do that, that means that when you were originally added, you were not set up with that permission. So you would either need to contact the original person who added you or contact the court directly so that they can update that permission level so that you can invite people.
Excellent, thank you. And I think we have time for just one more audience question. So, is case center used even for simple uncontested divorce? Michelle, are you able to answer this one?
Yeah. So case center, like a matter is created in case center for every court file in the family court. While case center isn't used as frequently as it is in a regular file as it is to a simple divorce file, all orders and endorsements are released to the case center file. So you're going to want to accept, I mean, you'll get an invitation when your application is issued, and I would accept that invitation and have that matter in your case center, because when the court releases the endorsement, the final divorce order, most commonly it's released through case center. So if you're waiting on an order and you go and email the court and say, hey, it's been 3 months and I don't have my divorce order, sometimes the answer is that it's already been uploaded to case center, and sometimes it was uploaded a month ago. So when you have a simple divorce file, yes, for sure, use case center. It's not used as commonly, but that's where you're going to get your order.
Excellent, thank you so much. And now I'll just open the floor to the three of you. If there are any final questions you want to answer or any kind of closing remarks, I'll open the floor.
Yeah, I did see one question come in actually that I wanted to address. It says, how do you know what the correct document numbers are since they change randomly? And this is why it's so important when you upload a document, do not delete it. You need to make sure that you're uploading it in such a way that that is going to be the record, because this is exactly what happens later on, is that the page numbers will change and the references will change. So anytime you're uploading material to the case center bundles, you need to make sure that it is the correct versions that are not going to be changed and not going to be deleted so that they can stay as is and the numbers don't change.
Yeah, I see there was a couple of questions about timing on uploading documents. There was also a comment about whether or not, like essentially to be safe, should we always upload our materials as soon as they're served to case center? As Lisa kind of touched on, the rule is you're supposed to wait for your filing confirmation prior to uploading it to case center. The reason being is that if the court takes issue with your document and rejects it for filing, it's technically not supposed to be before the court for your appearance until it's been properly accepted for filing. So if there's an error in the document that needs to be corrected, that needs to be corrected, and then the correct materials need to be uploaded. If you upload documents that have been rejected by the court, you risk getting a slap on your wrist from the judge, sometimes worse. So it's always better to just make sure you do your best to follow the proper steps, which is to serve, file, wait for that confirmation, and then upload to case center.
Because then you'll run into that issue of the documents having to be deleted and then the page numbering getting all messed
Yes.
up.
Yes. Yeah. Just check here and make sure.
Yeah, one more audience question. I know we discussed hyperlinking already, but that seems to be a bit of a hot topic. If we can just go over how to hyperlink again for the audience.
Yes, and this is going to be in one of the resources that's going to be sent out to registrants later, is literally a step-by-step handout of how to go through and hyperlink. But I can go through it again. So when you're in your file and you're in your view case list and you're in the view document, you should, like literally an image of the document is going to show up on your screen. And then you'll see where it says hyperlink. And so you just click that, and then you click where you want the hyperlink to be. So if you're trying to hyperlink an exhibit so that, for example, when the judge is reading the exhibit and it says, see, like exhibit A, they can click on exhibit A and it'll shoot them down to that exhibit so that they can quickly toggle between the affidavit and the exhibit. So that is how like you're gonna use those. And that's also, again, why it's really important to keep your hyperlink names really short and succinct, because it's gonna show up on the document as well. But again, like I said, there will be some materials coming that will get for registrants that'll give more detailed instructions on how to hyperlink.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And like she said, just look for the resources. And any other final thoughts or audience questions?
Yeah, and one other thing that I just wanted to touch on, I think there was a comment made about it too, is that courts are requiring that self-represented parties upload. So some courts, this is where it gets sticky. Some courts are requiring that self-represented parties upload their documents to Case Center. Some are doing it automatically. For instance, I know Oshawa, in my experience, has been doing it for the parties that are self-represented for them, simply because what I've run into is that if you're not counsel of record, they're not giving you access to that file. So for instance, in a limited scope retainer, where we may typically be assisting that client with the uploading to Case Center, it's now the court is now doing it for them. And that's to make sure that, again, when we're getting into filing documents and it being rejected, but then they're already uploaded to Case Center, they're trying to avoid improper materials being uploaded. So it really depends on court to court. Some courts are allowing self-represented parties to upload documents. Some courts are doing it for them just to make sure that the materials are being uploaded properly.
And I did just one last thing. I did kind of want to touch on why we weren't sharing our screen to show Case Center is literally just client confidentiality, because if we showed you our screens, we can't for that specific reason is why we weren't sharing it, just because I know there was a lot of questions about asking us if we were going to share a screen. Unfortunately, it's just not possible to redact a website like that to be able to share it with you in that format.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, that brings us to the top of the hour. So thank you, Lisa, Michelle, and Dana, for sharing your time and knowledge, expertise today. I'm sure the audience has found it very helpful and insightful. As a reminder for the audience as well, this session has been accredited for 1 hour of professionalism content by the LSO. And like we said, all resources mentioned today will be included in the show notes, which you will receive via email later this week. So that wraps up our session for today. Thank you again for our audience for joining us. And thank you for watching Family Law Now. We'll see you next time.